Now you can enhance the beauty of your garden by using MayFord seeds with a full range of vegetables, flowers, herbs, and lawn grasses. MayFord seed packs are hermetically sealed and date stamped, ensuring a quality product that you can trust. To grow your own vegetables, herbs, flowers, and lawn, explore our seed stand at any leading retailer for sheer inspiration. MayFord Quality Seeds, the leading brand.
Is Leon Kluge. He's also a familiar name. As his talk is a bit more of things happening outside there, he sent us a pre-recorded talk. So listen to Leon talking about unfamiliar favorites, South African plants, and that's underutilized. Thanks.
Annuals. What an important part of the horticultural industry. Now we manipulate annuals to color our gardens and pots and hanging baskets throughout the year, whether it's winter, summer, autumn or spring. Now annuals are there because the plant has a very short period of growth. So in some annuals, there's a very limited time of rainfall, or there's a very long, cold, icy period. So when the temperature or the moisture is sufficient, the plant needs to germinate, mature, flower, attract a pollinator, make seed, shed the seed and spread it, and then hibernate in the form of seed until next season when the conditions are right again. Now South Africa is rich in annuals, and we've provided the world with many, many, many different species that color all the gardens around the globe. Now one of those families is this, and this is called the Nemesias. And this must be one of the most peculiar or interesting Nemesias I've found. I'm in the Northern Cape, right here in the Renosterveld, and this one is in full flower, and it's by far my favorite. So this is called Nemesia caranthus. Caranthus comes from the Greek word K, means hand, anthus flower, so hand flower. So if you look at the flower, you'll see that hand shape at the top. It kind of looks like Michael Jackson's glove. It's part of the snapdragon family too. And if you look at the flower, it's kind of humorous because we have so many elements that can describe this flower. It can be a shooting star, it can be a crown or a dragon's head. To me personally, a proper dragon's head. Or it's Bart Simpson's hairdo. Now, if I put my nose to the flowers and I sniff away, it is a very sweet coconutty scent. And around me, the bees are buzzing. They're just waiting for me to leave this bunch of flowers so that they can come back and pollinate it. Also, an interesting way of the bees pollinating the flower. I've seen many do it. So if I am a little bee and I go close to the flower, I'm a heavy now. I'm full of nectar, the bee. I'm fat. I hang on to the lip falls down, snapdragon family. So I put my head down because there's a little sac at the back of the flower, a little horn, which is full of nectar. There you can see it. So if I hang there, put my nose in to drink, my head touches the top of the flower. And in there is the pollen. Pollen rubs on the head of the bee flies away, does the same at the next flower. And so they get pollinated and set seed very quickly. It's quite a tall nemesia. This is about 20 to 30 centimeters. Has a mass of flowers. You can see there's even some other nemesias in between. This is Nemesia leopoldii. Very beautiful. You get them in white or this purpley color, even pink. And then there's some irises in between. What a beautiful meadow mix for your garden. This should be readily available everywhere. So let's hope that the seed companies here in South Africa will promote this nemesia. It's an easy one to grow, likes full sun. It's very quick to grow, lots of flowers, beautiful scent, attract the insects to your garden, and it's proudly South African. Next to the road going into McGregor, there's a ground cover that catches the eye. And it's such a unique color, this lime, shocking green color. And this is called Greenum humifusum, or pitsnot, or duikerroot, duikerkos. Why duikerkos or pitsnot? Well, if you pull out one of these annual plants, then you'll see the root. It's very slimy, and it's an excellent source of moisture to parts of the animal kingdom and also humans. That's why duikers dig it up, and then they would nibble on this as an extra part of moisture for the diet. Now, as I say, it's an annual plant. It's got this lime green color going into white and yellow, pollinated by all kinds of insects. And I think this plant that's growing next to the road here should be available in seed packets for South Africans to sow in their gardens. What a show, and what a unique color to have.
So one of my favorite plants to use in a garden setting or for a flower show is this plant right here, and this is called Seriphium plumosa, or as you might know it as Stubie plumosa. Now, plumosa meaning feathery. Now, feathery is when I touch the leaves, it's soft, and all the little tiny little foliage is full of hair, and that hair gives it that feathery look. And also, it prohibits its moisture from escaping. So this grows on the hot parts of the mountain slopes where it can be really, really hot and dry. So all the moisture this plant can keep for itself, it does so by all of this hair on its foliage. It's also known as slungbos because there's a lot of snakes supposedly that hide underneath them. Now, I've seen a snake or two underneath these slungbos before when I harvested for flower shows, but I mean there's snakes under all kinds of bossies as well. Now, they also say maybe it's called slungbos because of the flower shapes. It looks like little snakes coming out of the boss. Now, Stubie plumosa is so nice to use in your garden because of this silver color. Now, what does it do? Now, this silver color gives depth to a garden. So if you have a lot of green in your garden, shades of green, and you bring in the silver foliage in between, it gives you that third dimension. Now, at flower shows too, we use this a lot, especially at the Chelsea Flower Show. Why? This plant connects everything together. It lasts a long time in a vase. We don't even put it in water. And this takes the Proteaceae, and instead of it looking very formal and contrite, this makes it look wild. And it also connects our Proteaceae that we flow into the northern parts of South African plants that we use on our stand, and just makes it look like an effortless, natural landscape. Now, Stubie plumosa grows all the way right here in the Cape, winter rainfall, right through to God's window there in Mpumalanga, where it's summer rainfall. It's a plant that can take a lot of drought, a lot of heat, and also a bit of moisture when it gets that. It's a plant that is always grateful and gives a show whenever you use it in a garden. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this plant because it does harvest a lot of dust when we use it for flower arranging. And when we open those boxes, my mask is on because that is when I get my throat sore. But it's a lovely plant to have in one of South Africa's stars when it comes to a wild indigenous garden and creating that silvery landscape that a lavender or a helichrysum might do in your garden. But this is a very good alternative.
So walking down a bike track here on the mountains in the southwestern Cape, right in the middle of the road is a plant that I haven't seen for a long time. And this plant here, the family, is probably the most famous garden plant on the planet. And it's the violas, or the pansies. And we in South Africa have our own indigenous pansy or viola. This is Viola decumbens, and it's extraordinary. This is a perennial, so it doesn't go off after a year. It's not an annual. It loves a sunny spot. It's sprawling decumbens, meaning the branching on the ground and creeping. And it's in full flower at the moment. It's end of winter, early spring. Look at the beautiful veins it has on its petals going towards the center. That's to lure in the pollinators. It's a very pretty plant, not a very high one, but we don't find these indigenous ones in South African garden centers for sale. I think it's a bit tricky to grow too. It loves a sandy, kind of poor soil to grow well. It's a rare sight to see. You don't see them quite often, so I'm very excited to see this one today. And now we're also part of that viola family that's all over the world, from Europe, Australia to America. So one of my favorite group of plants is pelargoniums. Now pelargoniums have been used all around the world. Whether you go to the UK and see them trailing down the hanging baskets or pots, or go to Disneyland and see them used en masse in between the rides. Pelargoniums have provided the world with colour like no other plant has. And Southern Africa is the hub of where all of those pelargoniums originate. And here in the Karoo, we have no shortage of pelargoniums. We have a wide range here, from succulent pelargoniums to hairy ones, to big ones, to trailing ones. And today I found one that's very special because its leaves are so beautiful, its flowers are gorgeous, the form of the plant is just incredible. And this plant grows between the fynbos, which starts here, and the Karoo succulents, which start literally a few hundred meters away from this side. So this is where the fynbos and the succulent Karoo meet. And this is where Pelargonium ovale grows. Ovale meaning egg-shaped. So if you look at the leaves, it's got an egg-shaped oval leaf. Very silver, hairy, beautiful architectural shape, and also lovely color, contrast color in your garden. The flowers have got this butterfly airiness to them. The slightest wind blowing over them is like the petals are just fluttering like butterflies. I've seen them being pollinated by little long-billed flies that suck the nectar deep inside the flowers. Now I've seen them around growing here where there's pink ones and white ones, so they do vary a little bit in color. Also pelargonium, pelagos meaning stalk shaped. So if you look at seed, here's one almost ripe, you'll see that the seed has got a stalk-billed shape. And when they burst open, once they dry, they've got a twirling action to them. So they land on the soil and the wind takes the seed and it kind of drills into the ground. And so the seed gets actually planted by the wind in the soil. This is a gorgeous plant for any garden, in a pot, in a hanging basket, in the garden, and one of our very gorgeous species. So I'm in the very endangered Vernosterveld here in the Northern Cape. Now this area is very, very known globally for its abundance of bulbs. This is the most bulb-rich area on Earth. And the rainy season has just ended now. So the annuals were in flower, and they were in flower in abundance here. There are fields of color. But when they're in flower, competition is strife, especially to get the pollinator to you. So the annuals are starting to go off. But after the annuals, when the rain stops and the soil starts to heat up, the bulbs start to erupt out of the earth. And today I found a few that's just mind-boggling. And one of my favorites is this one. This is called Sparaxis elegans. Isn't it just gorgeous? So Sparaxis come from the Greek word sparasso. And sparasso means to tear. So now if you look at the new buds that's coming out, you'll see there's like a papery brack around it. And this one is starting to tear open to release the flower. And that's where Sparaxis, the name, come from. Elegance, meaning elegant. And there's not many flowers more elegant than this. It's also called the pale harlequin flower for obvious reasons, all these bright colors and markings. I love this one, the salmon orangey color. You do get them in a white and you also get a pink. I've seen a few white ones very close by. It's not a very big plant, only about 10 to 15 centimeters high, about 8 leaves on it, and about 6 flowers per flowering stem. But they are just spectacular, part of the iris family. Now if you look at the flower, you see the markings inside, and that is to attract the pollinators, which is flies and beetles, to come to the center of the flower. And that is where pollination happens. So if you look at the freshly opened flower, which we have here with beautiful fresh markings, you'll see the pollen here on the anthers. Now it's coiled up, it's S-shaped. That's very different to any other flower. And if you look at the pollen, and if you touch it, you'll see that the pollen is a blue, browny color, which is also very different. Mostly it's always like yellow, orangey pollen, but not this blue, browny color, which I quite like. So Spiraxis is also a very easy plant for you to grow in your garden, especially in a pot, so you can keep it dry during summer, and then in winter you give it water and then it starts to shoot out. It is available abroad to buy, but I think this flower should be way more available to avid gardeners here in South Africa. This bulb is just one of our most spectacular bulbs we have, and it's flowering en masse this year. And what a winner.